Chapter 11, The Unmaking of Man. One day, upon awakening from troubled dreams, Gregor Samsa found himself in his bed transformed into a monstrous vermin. Franz Kafka, The Metamorphosis. One day, upon awakening, Halib Esagodom found himself in America, transformed into a monstrous black beetle. He had been an advanced dresser back home in Adi, and he had done everything: stitched head wounds, birthed babies, treated snake bites and malaria. But when he came to the States, he couldn't just stroll down to Central DuPage Hospital and proclaim, "Y'all, are you in luck? And guess who just moved into your country? That's right, the baddest all-purpose stitcher and baby birther that the backwoods of Tigray ever did see. Just show me the surgery wing, and I'll give you a free demonstration." No, my father was fortunate to get a job as a janitor at Wheaton College. He worked there for a few months, and then his eyes started to fail. He blamed the bright glare of the snow, but I always thought it had to do more with his glaucoma and the cataracts in his eyes. His eyesight departed slowly, and his work errors multiplied. He lost a key here, an unlocked door there, until his employers had no choice. He arrived at his job one day as Halib Esagodom, the working man supporting his family. He returned home that same day as Halib Esagodom, the unemployed beetle. Such is the fate of many immigrant fathers, especially those from third world countries. Those who can find work often toil in menial jobs. Those who cannot stay home, for both life is a far cry from the glory and self-worth they knew back in their homeland. For Halib, it meant several levels of dependence. He could not get a driver's license because he could not pass the vision test. And though he could still ride his bike, he usually relied on others to get around. On the worst days, his eyes swelled almost completely shut. Then he was forced to stay upstairs in his bed. The doctors could heal him, he told us, if they really wanted to. With all of their education and their technology, these doctors could help me. But they don't care about helping you in this country. The doctors here are not how we were in Adi. There, we treated everyone the best that we could, regardless of their financial situation. But in this country, they care only about your money. And if you don't have money, they won't give you the real treatment because they are not allowed to. Eventually, my father lost his teeth and had to get dentures. Then came diabetes, which forced him to adjust his diet. As his physical condition worsened, so did his emotional state. The more time he spent in the house, the more obsessed he became with household details. Sit down, everyone. We need to identify the person who left the cup in the stairwell. You shall not move even 1 inch until we find the culprit. The most innocent actions became an assault on his character. Can you believe that friend of Samawi's? How dare he call Samawi and invite our family to dinner without asking me first? I guess that's what happens when you are a fallen oak. No more respect anymore. Fearing that he was losing control and respect, he became increasingly paranoid. But what could you expect? He stayed home 24 hours a day, unable to work, barely able to see, and dependent on others for his welfare. He had all the time in the world to wish for his past, ponder his present, and question his future. Still, my father had never known shyness, and he maintained his vigor. So he focused his energies elsewhere, on his homeland, on his neighborhood, on his family, though not always to our liking. When we kids were in elementary school, he started to wake up at 5 a.m. so we could do aerobics. Where are you going to say that you grew up? Are you going to say that you grew up in Wheaton when you didn't take advantage of all the resources that you had around you? Do you know that those backs in Adi would have... Do you know what those backs in Adi would do to be in your shoes? Anything. We wanted to respond with some common sense. We'll happily say that we grew up in Wheaton, and like everyone else in Wheaton, we want to be asleep right now. But that would have resulted in a near-death experience, so we did the aerobics. Other times, he led us to Wheaton College track. We usually beat the dawn. It's important for you to run every day and to get strong. You see the lanes? There are 8 of them. I want you to circle the track in each one of those lanes once. Like with aerobics, we would have mutinied had we not harbored such respect for our good friend, Mr. Qualfie. Mr. Qualfie was long and made of animal skin. He usually can be found under my father's waist. And he came to call, you cried. So we circled the lanes as fast as we could, racing each other with my father timing each lap. But he did not just sit by and time us. He practiced what he preached. No matter how much his 50-year-old frame ached, he had always hobbled the 2 miles with us. He would walk part of it, if necessary, but he always finished all 8 laps. See, I'm not asking you to do something that I would not do myself. He pressed on, but before school, after school, on the weekends, at night, he never rested. You need to get used to working hard, so we are going to clean the whole house tonight. Watch me as I sweep and mop. When I mop, notice the first time through, I do a pure water mop to get all of the dirt off, and then after that, I mop everything again with a disinfectant. Salamawi, why are you pushing so hard with the broom? You are scattering the dust everywhere. I wonder sometimes, who are you going to say taught you later on when people see you sweeping? We learned how to sweep, mop, and dust. We even learned how to make beds hospital style, and after that, we were put to work outside. Among other tasks, we had to rake the long driveway that we shared with our neighbors. By the time we had finished clearing the leaves, we would look back to see where we had begun and see a new collection of leaves piling up. We would start again, going even faster, praying that we could beat the leaves and rush inside before they piled up again. Bye-bye. Why are you making us do this? Our neighbors don't even care, and none of their kids have to do it. Listen to me, my children. It is painful for you now, but believe me, one day will come when you will thank me, for I am teaching you how to work and how to live with your neighbors. The day comes in each of your lives when those around us are asked to testify, to tell what kind of character we have demonstrated in our past. I guess my father knew what he was talking about. When I was in the 8th grade, our landlord raised the rent and we were evicted from our home on College Avenue. It looked like we would have to leave Wheaton. But the folks at the Marion Park housing development moved us up several years on the waiting list. Before they could do us a special favor, though, they had to ask our neighbors on College Avenue what kind of people we were. The day of character examination had come. Our wonderful neighbors, Linda Panther, Linda Slinger, and Peggy Hackett, said good things about us, and we moved to Marion Park. Not too long after we moved, my father decided to rake the many leaves next to Marion Park's lake. This time, his desire to help his neighbors would get him in trouble. None of his kids were around, so my father tried to clean the entire lakefront by himself. He raked and raked and raked until the day had departed and evening had dawned. He finally finished raking and gathered leaves into this huge light brown mountain. Then he got his big boots, wading in the water, circling slowly, gathering littered reeds, fallen branches, and he went and cleaned Marion Park's lake. By the time he had finished, night had arrived, and he encountered his first major problem. He had created a mountain of leaves, litter, and sticks, but he could not figure out how to get rid of it. The mountain dwarfed the nearby dumpster, so he could not throw away the leaves. He came up with a plan. He would burn the leaves down to nothing. He had started and managed many fires back in Addis, so keeping this one under control would pose no problem. He started the fire and watched the leaves burn slowly. Suddenly he heard sirens. Firemen rushed to extinguish my father's blaze, and the policemen ran towards him. My father could not be more confused. Excuse me, I rake and I try to fix leaves. Excuse me, I do not understand. I am a poor man. I am disability. Please do not take me to the house of imprisonment. Please do not stain my record. The firemen had arrived so quickly because there was a fire station across from the main Marion Park entrance. They were stunned by my father's explanation, that he thought he was doing his neighbors a favor by burning the leaves for them. The law compelled the officers to arrest him or at least fine him, but after talking to him, they instead obeyed the golden rule and only gave him a warning. You see how treacherous world works? Sometimes you try to do something good and you end up getting punished for it. Although we Habesha refugees scattered to every imaginable corner of the earth, we occasionally gather by the hundreds at old banquet halls in Chicago. At each get-together, we are yearning for fellowship. We also search for news of the homeland, something we desperately sought before 1991, when the civil war between Eritrea and Ethiopia still raged fiercely. In the earliest days, at our very first party, the Chicago Habesha kids jumped Wold and me into the hallway within minutes of arrival. They had their own little gang. You suburban commandos, you're going to beat your butt. Wold and I ran into the closet and reappeared with brooms and started swinging at the city boy as wild as we could. Believe it or not, we ended up becoming friends in later years. We usually hung out in the hallways of the old buildings. When we were tired, we would retreat to the main room and sit at the table with our other young friends. The adults would sit at their own tables, and the women usually at different tables from the men. The dancing began around 11 p.m. and did not finish until 4 or 5 a.m. Before the dancing, though, they always had announcements, news sharing, and other pre-planned programs. My father would interrupt the programs, rising and leaving from a seat, heading right for the stage. He would take the microphone and start reciting gidams or rhyming poems. Being a child, I would cringe with embarrassment. Who is that? People would ask, especially the kids who lived in Chicago and did not know that was my father. Does anyone know where that crazy old man came from? I kept my mouth shut, denying him, too ashamed to acknowledge him. He had a rare talent for rhyming and gitam, our culture's spoken word freestyle rap. He would go on half an hour without pause. Iskum du kitbatulu akala gorlo anisikum indikum begos niti mulu ki beri tizwilio. Oh, you were called handicapped? Aren't you the very ones with the bundles joy leap over the expensive Red Sea? All listened in amazement, wondering who this eccentric old man was. Did he not fear to interrupt the program? Did he not realize he was shouting into a microphone create sonic hell? And how was it that he loved his homeland so much that he would sing half an hour gidams about it? Some days he would write the lyrics ahead of time, but then his eyes would fail him and he would struggle to read his own writing, even when he had the paper right up to his bifocals. He would call my friend Abraham, who was my age, but had come to this country later and could still read Tigrini quickly. Abraham, my son, are you here? Please come and read this for me. Abraham would go up respectfully and read the rhymes with my father's hunched frame standing guard next to him. In my younger days, my embarrassment created a smoke screen that blocked me from hearing my father's rhymes. But as I got older, maturity opened my ears and my heart, and the haze thinned, and I started to feel his words and the spirit beneath them. And then I started recognizing his genius. I remember one time when his poetry rivaled that of Homer, Virgil, and Shakespeare. I waited until we got home and then asked him to repeat the lines. I've since forgotten those lines, but I can never forget the quiet, almost embarrassed shock that flooded his eyes when I asked him to repeat them. It was the shock of a man who had slowly been convinced by those around him that he had little to offer. A man whose new country had labeled him insignificant. A man whose opinion rarely mattered as it once had. It was the shock of a proud man who had metamorphosed into a beetle. Several years later, I ran into an old friend named Bear at an annual Eatrian conference in Columbus, Ohio. I met him when I was a boy. Each year, he'd help drive my family to the conference. Bear was thrilled to see me. He grabbed me, hugged me, and as in our custom, pelted me with questions. How are you doing? How's your family? Your health? Your school? Your family? How are your parents and your siblings? School? Your family? And you? How's your health? Mother? Father? And you? How are you? Dion, I repeated. We are fine. Dion. I sat with Bear and we talked of old times. We laughed as we remembered stories of going to Eatrian conferences together. He told me of his wife and kids, and I congratulated him. Then Bear started telling me stories of my father. Sima Salamawi, he began, listen. I went back to the homeland recently and ran into some of your father's old friends, Antigua, old-timers, dinosaurs from way back in the day. There's only a few of them left now. 30 years of war made sure of that. The old-timers started to tell me the stories of Haliab and the son of Zendigal, the stories of the deeds that he had done and the people that he had helped. We sat in the tavern, and the tavern filled up, and more came. Many others, even younger ones, started to speak of him. He walked through miles of winter mud to help my aunt to give birth. He saved my grandfather from snake bites, certain death. He stitched my head up after the son of Tetsi busted it open with a stone. He always gave what he could to the poor, even giving them animals during feast times so he could not go hungry. His generosity knew no bounds. How we mourned when they came for him and he fled. For who was ever like him, like Haliab, our father and our friend? As I listened to all these witnesses testify to your father's love in his heart, I became overwhelmed with emotion. All of them regarded your father as a true hero, a generous, talented hero who served his people with great love and distinction. I am glad that you and I were made to find each other today so that I could tell you of all these things. In my heart, I knew it was you and your siblings who should have heard these stories, not me. All throughout my childhood, I witnessed my father's metamorphosis, watching him deteriorate, seeing him becoming dependent on others, feeling sorry for him, and even feeling embarrassed. I witnessed his unmanning. All that time, the thought had never occurred to me that my father had once been a hero. or that he might still be a hero, tragic and flawed as he might be.